It is, in my view, quite an embarrassing testimonial, frankly, to our disdain for women and our collective criminal silence in this face of this enterprise contrived to extort and profit off the misery of our daughters, of our wives, of our sisters. And all this is done in the name of sanitizing Abuja. We are living witnesses to a value system that continues to disrespect, commercialize, and subjugate women. We are living witnesses to unprovoked raids on women labeled as prostitutes, but without any information or arrest of their male patrons. We now live in a city where our women cannot walk the streets in the evening without being harassed or arrested by security agents who now possess a supernatural skill of telling your profession by just looking at you. And what worries me, and what should worry all of us, is that this assault on women now enjoys the institutional imprimatur of the Federal Capital Authority, and of course, the cohesive resources of our various security agencies, all in the name of the APB task force. I will make bold to say, regrettably so, that Nigeria state is at war with women. And so, this assault on women stops now. We will not keep quiet. We will not relent until we awaken the conscience of this nation to its fundamental duty of equal protection. This documentary tells a story of a culture of exploitation and abuse of women in a society that is numb and apathetic to the plight of women. It chronicles the culpability of the Nigerian state in not only tolerating this culture, but in actively promoting it. It's a story of helplessness and courage in the same breath. It invites us, however, to do something.
On the 14th of April 2014, there was a bomb blast in Maraba, attributed to Boko Haram. 88 people died, and over 200 people were injured. Now, on the 15th, that was the next day of April 2014, this was the first time I experienced the Abuja task force. 10 law enforcement agencies that moved around at night and systemically picked up what they termed were alleged sex workers. And as you would see in the documentary, we followed them and we had the accounts of the brave women who were able to share their stories. Now this was 5 years ago. There has been this year, especially last month, the protests, particularly the Abuja raid on women and the end war on women in Nigeria. Now it's sad and it's shameful to see that this is still continuing today.
In 2011, the Federal Capital Territory Administration declared what was called a total war against prostitution. It swung into action, combing the streets of the capital through its agencies, the Abuja Environmental Protection Board and the Social Development Secretariat, with logistic support by a non-governmental organization, the Society Against Prostitution and Child Labor in Nigeria.
We'll go to APB, follow them when they want to go and do raid for corporate beggars, we'll cancel the people. Then when they wait for the girls in the night, in the morning we'll be cancelling them, talking to them, and mandated to collaborate with two agencies. That's the Social Development Secretary that has the primary function of overlooking and supervising every social ease in FCT, and then the Abuja Environmental Protection Board that has that legal backing to remove and evacuate all nuisances off the street. So part of our challenges.
Nuisances.
Actually,
Women are now
it's
nuisances.
the mindset that Nigerians have these days.
I think it's the idea of it is courageous, but for a country that has not developed to an extent of monitoring what we do, what those put in power, it's a terrible outfit.
They picked us from Banis. When they picked us from Banis, they took us to Osako, opposite Eden Garden. The police station is there. They took us to that place, but there is no policeman inside there. So they now asked us to pull off. When we pulled off, they started, some of us, they used protection, some of us, they didn't use protection.
He will send me to jail. What me I did not do, he will create what me I did not do for me. Because me, I didn't stay here, I grown up in Benin. Me, I have not been into any police case like this in my life before. And the thing looked strange to me, I was afraid. After when you have already talked to me and they threatened me, all those kind of things, after that, there's a room inside this office. He takes me to the place and he says,
Treat them with kindness and love. Tender love. Why? You won't catch Ashawu. Catch both the Ashawu and the Ashawi. You won't stand for all you want to say body. She stand today, nobody come. Tomorrow, nobody come. She go get transport to come on.
In institutions are people subject to whether you call them Sound Plan, or you call them AEPB, or you call them Joint Task Force, the mentality that makes people or institutions to believe that rules don't apply to them is what makes this possible, and it's also what endangers all of us as a country.
Now, a black American feminist poet, by the way, said something very basic a long time ago, but still extremely valuable, namely, my silence had not protected me, and your silences will not necessarily protect you. So seeing these courageous women coming out and breaking that silence, I think is a very important first step towards addressing the challenges that we are facing. And probably we are just only beginning to understand the scope of the challenge that we are facing here. It's only by getting these problems out into the open that we are fundamentally able to address them. So we need to ask ourselves, why is it that we continue seeing these examples of violence against women? In spite of democratic development, in spite of economic development, in spite of opportunities, in spite of having these amazing, vibrant, incredible women that we see in Nigeria, why is it that they still have to face this kind of oppression in society? Is that really something of our nature? Is that really something of our culture? Does it really need to be like that? And I believe not, but I believe that it takes courage also by our leaders to step up and add their voices to this very important challenge. And frankly, that probably also takes getting more women into power by the end of the day. Otherwise, unfortunately, regression will take its toll again.
10 years ago, I heard those tears, but they weren't silent. I didn't hear her tears, I heard his. I heard the tears of the sons of the Nigerian woman. From 2004 till about 2014, I think. I worked with street children in Lagos. I've heard every horror story that there is, but yet I thank God that I'm here to see this film. The tears aren't silent, they're very loud. And so the walk began. But the walk, not the work, the walk with steps is a tightrope. It's a tightrope because we have to balance it. We have to realize that all is not lost. If all was lost, this hall would not be full. Looking around this hall, seeing the personalities here, it shows that we don't agree with violence against women. In 2018, I wrote a poem, and I'll read it to you. It was the most recent thing I could lay my hands on. And I'm sure as you listen, you will know a bit of what I have seen. It's titled, "This Is Why We Do It." She screamed before, but no one heard, no one cared, and no one came. Now she is quiet and still within, but without, her body is broken, pummeled, abused. Her mind is dragged through the mud and buried deep in darkness. She is still. Is she dead? It is dark. Perhaps she's unable to resurrect. Does she scream still? If she does, her scream makes no sound. But there's one who watched over the years and heard, and now he screams, and all can hear him. Stop her screaming. Stop those who make her scream before they find her, before her dream is shattered into a million pieces. How can the pieces be made whole again? Stop it now. Keep her dream. Stop it now. Protect her from the trauma. I must thank and commend the Yaradua Foundation for highlighting the fact that the work is not all done. And in our utter outrage and horror of the things that we hear of and see that are happening in our society, we ought also to walk the tightrope. And I'll tell you why I say it's a tightrope. I have had several engagements with the widows of the police, the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force. And these widows paid the ultimate sacrifice. Perhaps if you were to sit and speak with me, I would tell you, working with women that are crying, not silently at all, that sometimes our greatest help has come from the gender desk, the family desk at the police stations. And so my request, as we walk this tightrope, as we call out those that offend our values, offend our sensibilities, offend all that is right in our nation, as we call them out, perhaps we also need to applaud those that still keep the flag of Nigeria flying, that still keep the flag of our values flying.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Why do many victims of sexual violence in Nigeria, why do you think they avoid telling their stories?
Thank you for having me. Well, I mean, we live in a society that fosters violence, and the response we have to sexual violence here is very weak. So when you come out and you tell your story, that requires a lot of courage. You have to be willing to go all the way. You have to be able to contain all the backlash, all the insults against your morality. That poverty is a factor. They know that these women are not going to find proper defense. When they go to these mobile courts, there's no one standing in for them, and they're not properly educated. So that puts them in a better place to be exploited. I mean, over the past 2 years, yes, we have seen the conversation about gender violence really pick up. But here in Nigeria, it's really just lip service, because you're putting structure, you're talking policy and all of that, but you're not putting the structures in place. You're not, looking to see these policies being implemented.
I think the whole thing we've seen is happening here is a rule of law issue, in the sense that we have standards already set by the law as to how arrests will be affected, and some of which Kemi has alluded to. You inform you inform the person you're going to arrest of what he or she has done. The dignity of the person is supposed to be very important, and all these are encased in our laws, are equal in every respect. And it goes again to what Frankie just said now, that our authorities, in spite of that judgment, we are yet to obey the judgment of court, and yet our security agents are going out again and going about the same thing in the same way. This thing recurs, and it keeps happening every other time. And for us, I guess, it's a reflection period. Why do this keep happening, and why the women?
Okay, good question.
Definitely they have a gender-based problem, and you see it in their approach to work. You see it from the level of recruitment, even to posting, to retainment, to training within the system. The system is tilted against women. So you find a scenario where women cannot ordinarily enter into any of these agencies as per work. And then you find the scenario where within the institutions, women are sexually harassed by their bosses, and when they have to report, you have to report to the same person that has harassed you. Yes. Yeah? And you find oversight agencies that have a responsibility, like the PSC, turning a blind eye, and not coming up with policies that should ensure that the rights of women, they should learn to appreciate women within that institution, and then it would project to the wider society. Unless there is a code of conduct, which is one of the, at the back of my mind, so there should be a code of conduct that holds them accountable in their personal private space. That when it comes to when it's brought to the office, it is handled as if you have stolen. That kind of extremism, or should I say that kind of seriousness, is placed on such reports, then we would see them sitting up.
Yeah. Think about if this is happening in Abuja and in Lagos, then the kind of things that you can imagine are happening in different states are unimaginable.
We have all had the chance to step into the world of women who have faced this traumatic experience and are living with the scars. And so it's for us to look at the life sentences many of these victims are having to bear as a result of the negligence of those who have been tasked to protect them. We should reflect on why this is happening at such an alarming rate, and what each of us can do to stop this. How we can hold the perpetrators accountable and compensate the victims, but most importantly, ensure that this does not happen to anyone ever again.
The event was good, but I think that a lot of people are still not listening.
Yeah.
And they don't recognize that it's a serious issue that requires serious action.
Yeah.
And for me, that is disappointing.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that at least we've made a little progress in terms of ensuring that some of them were in this room. And would only continue to raise this issue and continue to push until they do something concrete to address this systematic abuse of women.
Exactly. Thank you.
I love the movie. It was very touching because it just like kind of puts a face to the numbers that people are talking about. 1 in 5 or 1 in 3 women will experience violence or like sexual violence in her lifetime. And then you're seeing like the interviews and you're actually seeing these victims and this actually happened to them. While we're here, Dolapo came in, Dolapo Osinbajo, Her Excellency came in, did like an amazing speech. Everyone was so, taken back by it. But then, I thought I was the only one who noticed that.
No, when you were saying amazing speech, I was like, sorry, no shade,
exactly.
but
it was amazing because that was
good
great
poetry and all, but you
poetry,
didn't address the issues. How are you talking about there's a tight line, let's not smear the name of all law enforcement agents in Nigeria?
I get that, but
no, I get that, but your first statement should have been, you know what, I'm so shocked to see what's been happening, not to come and be talking about, I've worked with area boys, and she didn't address the issue to me. So,
but then the thing
I'm scared. Like, are they really taking it seriously?
That's what I'm gonna get to. So, when she left, I thought I was the only one who knows that. So she's leaving so quickly.
Yeah.
She's not even gonna wait till the panel discussions.
Exactly.
And then when Fakria brought it up, I was like, oh, thank God someone said something about this because this is what they need to hear.
Exactly.
And then they just
left. Once she left, sorry, the chief of army staff, chief of which other one was the naval staff?
The people who are making the policies against
all of them left. Then it was only the diplomatic community left.
So they're the only ones who care. And I was just like, how is this even? We're not even going to solve this problem if these people don't even give a damn about these women. They just, okay, guys. Thank you.
Like,
bye,
we've done our PR for tonight.
Exactly, so that they can say that they were there.
I think it's an important issue.
Yeah.
I was at a protest about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And
I think it's just clear that it's targeted at women and it's something that everybody should be worried about. Because it could be anybody.
Exactly.
It doesn't just have to, you don't have to wait until it's someone you know. It could be your sister, your friend, anybody could be picked up and you know what happens after that.
Yeah.
I think the movie was very eye-opening. But I also think it was disappointing that people kind of found it funny at some points and made jokes and were laughing. I didn't see what anybody was to be laughing at because it's not a very funny topic. And of course I was kind of disappointed when all the security personnel left.
And the office, the vice president's wife and all,
Yeah, but I mean, events like this are part of the story of pushing the agenda forward. Every step is very essential.
Yeah, true. What did you guys think of the event? Were you happy?
I enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was necessary. I really loved Fakria being on the panel because I felt like she came through with some of the facts. I'm very happy that Mr. Romy talked about the fact that this is unacceptable, even legally, right? It's unacceptable. However, I cannot hide the fact that I was very disappointed with the Vice President's response. I would have expected at least some empathy for the women who are suffering.
Yeah.
Before you start to talk about the men, I mean, we all appreciate our servicemen. We all know that they give their lives, they give their families, they pretty much give everything, right, to ensure that we're safe, that we're secure and everything. But I would have expected some empathy.
Yeah.
Some empathy. I know that there's a lot of politics involved. I know that there's a lot of, there are lots of titles. God help me never to use that word.
Titles.
But some empathy would have been nice, and that for me was sadder than feeling so.
Yeah. Well,
I also think that the fact that a lot of them left before the conversation happened.
Exactly.
And this was an issue that affected women. And one of the points of the evening was that women have been treated in Nigeria as if they didn't matter. And they made that point.
Yes. If you look at the Gender and Equal Opportunity Bill, the last public hearing at the National Assembly, the legislators couldn't even bother to turn up to that. And so when we talk about the fact that women's issues and issues affecting the promotion and protection of women in Nigeria are not taken seriously, every day they give us more reasons to be concerned.
Why that statement is true, yeah.
I think has happened has become very clear to me is that the onus now rests on us as civil society to drive this issue because the people in authority, the politicians, the duty bearers, they're never going to drive it.
Yeah.
I don't think that it does women any disservice to use the issues of one particular set of women to conflate issues of another set of women. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think that was disrespectful to both the widows and to the women who are victims of this.
And to the children on the street.
Yeah.
One issue doesn't cancel out the other. The fact that you're working in one area does not take out the fact that the government is absolutely negligent, almost to the point of enabling these people harassment.
Yes.
Very true.
Like as in they sanction it beyond the name.
Exactly.
It was just I expected more from the VP's wife,
Yeah.
But she was being careful with her words.
Yeah.
And she just came to come and read her poem to us. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing that has to be linked to what we are here for and all that. So I don't think that's
I was very impressed. The turnout, the energy in the room. I mean, the VP's wife's speech was a bit of a downer, but what do you know? We believe in her heart she said something different.
Okay. So way forward.
No relenting.
I love that. Thank you.
My walk and my talk been different. My style and my thoughts been different.